Logan Robinson on the program, Bucs game day, Nole game day, bro. You got so many different things going on. I'm not even going to list them all. You just go check them out. Logan's Twitty. Go check him out. He's got a lot of great things going on. What's going on, brother? How are you?
What's going on, Jay? Good to see you as
sir.
always. You do an incredible job, and I'm just appreciative of you invite me on here. Just got back from Palm Beach, and I'm sure we have a lot to discuss of the Bucs, a lot that Jason Licht and Todd Bowles told us. So got a busy and fun season ahead for the Bucs in 2025.
Yeah, we'll start with Jason Licht because he's the guy that he was speaking there, kind of standing up. What was the big kind of takeaway from the things that he said to the media?
Well, I think to point out, number one, everybody's kind of been curious of the addition of Haason Reddick, and someone that I think everybody is looking forward to seeing a pass rusher that can disrupt, get to the backfield, and also to when he gets there, get strips, get the ball out, fumble recoveries, all that kind of stuff. Something that, didn't really see a ton from in the tenure from JTS. And then, Yaya Diaby's continuing to learn and grow better as a pass rusher himself. But, I think, too, there were some question marks on maybe the character concerns. And that's something that was brought up from the media asking Jason on, what kind of person is coming into this locker room. And, he was asked to, who he mentioned of who he talked to, Harry Roseman. It was asked about that, picking his brain on, what to expect of Haason Reddick coming in as a character and if there were any issues there. And didn't seem like that was really a conversation that had any link to it. I think to me, coming off from what Jason said, it seems like they got a guy that's hungry, is fired up to be in Tampa for this opportunity. And it's someone too, if you think about it, he will, if he can excel and do well, and this year he could really earn a big contract. So the Bucs are probably expecting a lot out of him, but too, they did say, they wouldn't be opposed to grabbing, someone at that edge position if they are of the caliber that they feel like is high on their board. Jason Licht and company will go ahead and do so. But I think Haason Reddick, some updates too as well from Chris Godwin on, how that recovery is going there and if expect them to be available in week one. Todd Bowles also mentioned that as well. But I think that's one that I think points out to me out of all of them is Haason Reddick, because I think he is going to play a big factor for what the Bucs want to do in 2025.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm hoping that they can get home with 4 and not, Todd Bowles likes to get creative with that blitz package. And it's a lot easier when you don't have to just live by that, when you can just sprinkle that in because you get home with 4. You can make sure that your corners aren't covering for as long. And I have zero concerns about Haason Reddick because I look at the situation and I say, he got traded to the Jets. There was a miscommunication there. The Jets were an absolute dumpster fire. He's not going to come to the Buccaneers thinking that he's going to – it's a veteran-laden locker room, especially with Levante back and Mike back, and you're playing for a guy like Todd Bowles. And there's proof of concept. He did a 1-year deal before in Carolina. He was able to parlay that into a deal with the Philadelphia Eagles. And if this guy does want a multi-year deal again, he's going to have to get on board and to be able to, be a good soldier for this team and pick up 10, 12, 15 sacks. Are you concerned at all with Haason Reddick, or do you kind of just listen to what Jason has to say and say, hey, he's earned the benefit of the doubt? If he's not concerned, I'm not concerned.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I listened to Jason, and, one thing that you could take away throughout definitely the last 2-3 years or further, they've done a good job of understanding what fits well in their locker room. Right. And I think that's something that will immediately, definitely with, the addition of Baker Mayfield, that has been huge for them, and the emphasis of building camaraderie, chemistry. Guys are hanging out with each other outside of the locker room, doing a lot of things. It just feels like a lot of these guys play for each other, where in the past a little bit, there were some turmoil and some previous guys that, just wasn't the case. But right now, I hope that the locker room that is currently held right now, led by Baker, Levante David, Mike Evans, a lot of these guys, Antoine Winfield, that meshes well for a guy that might, there might be some concerns of that, but can be fixed. I think the Bucs just have so many leaders and guys that have been around in Tampa for so long to where that can be cleaned up. And just going off of the play from Haason Reddick, there's a lot to like. You want to have a guy that was a massive disruptor during those years. Last year was highly questionable just because of what was going on in the New York Jets. They had a lot of stuff going on. Let's just all be honest here. I mean, they
For real.
had so many things filled with drama, and Reddick was, a little bit of a part of that. But, this is a different kind of place down in Tampa. And, you look at the New York teams with the Jets and the Giants, they just have not been able to figure things out for a long while. But where I feel comfortable at, if I'm going to pick a team, it's Tampa. And there's a lot of respect. And just speaking to some people too there in Palm Beach, Hassan Reddick is someone that can be that disruptor for you on third downs where you need it. And that's something that Tampa has lacked at times. You have really good confidence in your inside there with Vita and Kalijah, and you've loved the growth. And you see that in Yaya Diaby as well. Now you match that in tandem with Reddick, and you just see who could take more advantage of those opportunities. And like you were saying earlier, the way that you bring pressure with 4, it can really impact too on what your defensive backs need to do, which is also a big question mark on what they're going to want to do in this year's upcoming NFL draft.
Yeah, no doubt. And let's go before we get to Bowles. Let's go to that. Where do you think, like, if they have their druthers, like, let's say Jihad Campbell's there, let's say Will Johnson's there, let's say they get their pick of that later pass rusher. Obviously, Carter's not going to be there, but let's say they have their pick of Green or Ezaraku or James Pierce or any of these guys, or if they had their pick, and let's say every team was, Jackson Dart goes at 12, and you know what I mean, 3 running backs go, or you've seen these mock drafts, they're nuts. But let's say they have their because we know corner is a spot, we know interior linebacker, and we know pass rush. Those are 3 of, if not the 3 biggest positions of need. Who do you think they go with? Is it a player thing? Is it a position thing? What do you think?
To me, like you were just naming there, priority cornerback, linebacker. You got to figure out how you fill the hole of Levante David, if this is expected to be his last year in the league coming up. And then, you're trying to figure out your edge room, bringing in a guy that's young. You had Chris Braswell drafted last year from Alabama, and you saw some growth there at the end of the season. Just such a smaller guy, and they've got to figure out a way to put some size on him. And, he has natural gift because he's got that speed with the size. But whenever they do try to add size to him, I'm just interested to see how that impacts him as a significant pass rusher. But I would lean towards whatever is best available, and I think it's going to be on the defensive side of the ball. We talked with both Jason and Todd as well, but Jason mentioned, if there is an offensive player there and we feel like he's very capable of doing things for us where we can find success, even though that they are going to be returning practically their entire starting unit on the offensive side of the ball, we still will go after an offensive player. I just don't think that's much of an attraction to the Buccaneers, at least in the first round to them, unless they go wide receiver, which, there are definitely some, storylines and question marks going into this next season of Chris Godwin's, rehab and how successful that's going to look, and, the future of Mike Evans and the sophomore season of Jalen McMillan. But I think it's going to stay definitely on the defensive side of the ball. I think Jihad Campbell is someone that I'm sure Todd Bowles is probably salivating a little bit of what he could probably do in a lot of those blitz packages and sending him and helping with that pass rush. And, it's someone that's very versatile and can do a lot of things for you with the experience that he has. And then, too, if they want to run in the edge room, you still have Hassan Reddick there. Like I was just mentioning there, you have Braswell, you got Yaya Diaby. JTS is off and going to the Cleveland Browns. But, you could still work and develop a guy there. And I questioned the pickup of Chris Braswell last year just because I knew that he was going to be a guy that you're going to work with and develop the next few years. And so I don't think it should be much of a shock that he wasn't a crazy impactful player for you last year, but it is still going to take 2 to 3 years to get him going, which they did the same thing too with JTS. Right. And it just feels sort of the same theme between those 2 players. And I think they need a guy that can be almost an immediate impactful player, but someone that can find their strides earlier in their rookie season. And, if that person is available for them in the first round, they will certainly go after them. But I don't think we have to worry about Jason Licht going after an offensive lineman, even though he loves those offensive linemen. We don't have to worry about that happening. They got their offensive line. They got Bredesen back. Graham Barton showed some signs to them as well. And I think Baker's pretty happy with his tackles as well.
Yeah, he loves those guys for sure. What about Todd Bowles being able to sit there and be able to hear what he had to say about everything? I love that he's bringing in a guy to take care of the game management. I feel like for all the things that people don't like about Todd Bowles, this is a guy that's been really open to change. He's been open to, adjustments, and I feel like older guys, they get, the short end of the stick when they say, "Oh, well, you can't teach an old dog new tricks." Well, I look at college basketball and I see Bruce Pearl, I see him there, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, he does a pretty good job. And Kelvin Sampson, two of the four coaches in the Final Four, and Tom Izzo was in the Elite Eight there. And I look at Todd Bowles, and I was one of the more concerned people here in the Tampa Bay area because half of my family are Jets fans, and I saw that dumpster fire and how he didn't make adjustments, and he was
Mhm.
stubborn, and he never made any changes. Well, now, I mean, Todd has made changes, man. He's made changes to his coaching staff. He's bringing in a game management guy. He went away from Ryan Neal. He went away from JTS. He brought in different players. He went away from Devin White, right? He went to KJ Britt. So I feel like he's getting better, and he's being more open minded to adjustments. What do you think his mindset is going into the season? What do you think about some of the decisions he's made to try to not just make himself better, the staff better, but the team better as a whole?
Yeah. Well, I think whenever he called out the team and saying that, ignite, I believe it was ignite some more fire, or having the killer instinct. That's
Killer
exactly what he
instinct,
said.
yeah.
Killer instinct is something that I agree with him on in the regard of in some games, and we did see that in a handful of them last year, where, the Bucs almost like got too comfortable in games or even going into games, maybe even starting practices. And it's crazy. I cover on the college side, covering Florida State. So we had a lot of access and you could see every practice and you could see it all the way throughout. And so you could certainly understand of the mentality and how the energy looked going into a game on Saturdays, where of course here in Tampa, we're not able to do that. We get a little bit of an eye of some warm ups and some stretches, and that's about it. But, I could just see a little bit of emphasis of how these guys would be looking on some of these games and going into Sundays and just getting a little bit relaxed. Certainly after finding a momentum swing and getting a winning streak going, it would kind of ease up a tiny bit. And, when this team is hungry, though, you see a whole different team. You see a top 5, top 3
Right.
NFC team. And that's something that excites you a ton. I think that's something that not only, Todd Bowles is calling out the team saying there needs to have a better killer instinct, but it goes to the head coach as well, to where that is locked down on every Sunday. You cannot overlook your opponent. That's something that happened, I feel like, quite a bit, and that's happened the last few years on a consistent basis with a team with so much talent that there shouldn't be a thing of that happening. And I thought that was something that stood out to me from Bowles, and someone too of a coach that is continuing to learn and get better and try to improve himself. And also too, he noted, at first, since arriving in the Bucs, but also to his time with the Jets, he felt like he needed to be so hands-on everywhere
Mhm.
and so many different parts of the team. Now he said he's allowed for his position coaches to do a lot more, be hands off, and just control what I can control and where he fits, where he feels like he fits best with his defensive philosophy and teaching and coaching on in that regard and getting ready and prepared for Sundays. So that's something that I think,
Yeah.
Todd is still growing as a coach, and it's something
Mhm.
that we'll see him hopefully improve on with the new addition that he's made in his coaching staff.
Yeah, and I hope that they find a way to, wherever they do, is to get more turnovers. That's going to be paramount.
Yeah.
It seems like he has a type. I think you've learned over the years. Jason Light is a type when it comes to offensive linemen. Todd Bowles has a type when it comes to secondary guys. Right? He'll take smaller safeties, bigger corners. I don't know if that's necessarily conducive to coming away with turnovers. I'm hoping that he finds, like, all right, take the guy that's 6'1" instead of 6'3" because he's a ball hawk, right? I'm hoping that there's something when it comes to that aspect, because you look at this team and they've had their ups and downs, two swoons in the middle of the season the last 2 years. They find a way to bounce back and be able to win enough games to win the division. But I still feel like there's room to grow on the defensive side of the ball.
Mhm.
So it's exciting to see what they do as far as putting their efforts into that. I want to ask you, Florida State, what is your take on what they're looking like this year? I was so far out on the DJ acquisition to bring him in. I was like, dude, we just watched this guy. Like, I understand you lose so many players to the draft and you have such a crazy season where you go undefeated and then Jordan Travis gets hurt and then you just get smoked by Georgia. I don't blame them. I don't take anything away from that season because of what happened in that bowl game. But the very next year, you have to like come right back, and then you lose the game overseas, and DJ's there. Midway through the season, it's just like, let's just get to 2025 for the Noles. Let's just put it in the past. I can't. I think they're more like the team 2 years ago than they were the team last year. What's the optimism? What's your focus on this year when it comes to this team? Because everybody's going to look at Norvell and go, all right, man, kind of gave you a little bit of a pass last year, but you got to show me something here in 25. It doesn't have to be back maybe in the college football playoff, but you got to be knocking on the door and show people like I'm building this thing back up.
Mm-hmm. Well, right now they're in spring camp, and there is 2 new coordinators with Gus Malzahn coming on the offensive side of the ball and Tony White coming from Nebraska, a DC that's highly respected. And of course, the same thing has gone for Gus Malzahn, leaving UCF. Let the play calling duties go away. Then he took them back. Just a lot of that was going on there in the Knights over there in Orlando. And, they have a new quarterback, and you go from DJU and you go over now to Thomas Castellanos, who's, an extrovert guy that's going to talk, be chatty and chirpy, which I love. I like a quarterback that has confidence, and that's something that I don't think DJ, was really going to be a guy to really be your leader. And it's hard to do that for a quarterback in 1 year.
No,
that,
you're
but for
right.
a guy like
You're
DJ,
right.
that's just not going to happen. He just wasn't that type of person and wasn't going to be. And I just don't feel like that fits the Florida State mojo. And, I don't know.
I don't know if that fits any quarter. You know what I mean?
It shouldn't. Yeah.
Like Riley Leonard. We see all these, we see Will Howard. Like, so now this is the new age we live in, man. Like, you can't just be like, oh, I didn't go through the battles with these guys for 3 years. I didn't work my way up from the freaking scout team. Or it's like, dude, if you can help us win, I don't give a crap. Get in here, start barking orders. And DJ he never had that. And I just, we got to start looking at, we bring up a good point, right? We bring up a good point where maybe in years past, these guys have had to tiptoe their way. You don't want to step on any toes, but Logan, now with the way that is with NIL, with transfer portal, like it's going to be a little bit like pro ball. It's going to be like, all right, well, you're the quarterback, dude. Even though you haven't been here the last 3 years, here's the reins. Lead the way you lead, because if not, you're not going to be successful.
No. And I don't need you to be a Shedeur Sanders. I don't need you to be all crazy. Like, that's just not the case. But, you go back to a guy like Jameis Winston, who owned the locker room as a true freshman coming in. And, EJ Manuel was there beforehand. And so, he sat behind EJ Manuel, of course, but he was a guy that a lot of the locker room was attracted to, but he learned a lot from EJ Manuel. But, Jameis found success, of course, as well, and doing his thing now and getting his opportunities in the league. But going now all the way into 2025, Mike Norvell goes 2-10 the previous season, absolute fallout, no offensive anything. You and I could have played on the offensive side of the ball, and maybe you had found some success. I mean, it was just god awful. It was embarrassing to watch. It was really hard to cover on our end because we were just saying the same thing over and over again. So like you mentioned, whenever fans were saying, just get me to 2025, we were in the same boat because there was just nothing. There was no improvements. There was nothing to be really looking forward to on the next Saturday. And, this team would show you some things and practices on throughout the week. And then on Saturdays, it just completely fall off. Now you brought in 2 new coordinators, a whole ton of new coaching staff. The roster has just been fully revamped. And now Florida State kicks off the season against Alabama and in a newly renovated Doak Campbell Stadium. So a lot of eyes are going to be on this team, and a lot of pressure is on these new coordinators. And, just going off of some things, Florida State just actually had their first scrimmage, and talking with Gus Malzahn, they're still working on building physicality, which is something that was completely missed last year from some of their veterans that fell off from the previous year of 2023 when they found that success going 13-0 before that bowl game against Georgia. There's just got to be a complete turnaround, and I'm not entirely sure of what that might entail. I think you've got to win 8 wins at Florida State to feel secure after the season that you had. But Mike Norvell is not going to be calling plays. It's now up to Gus Malzahn. Mike has moved into a CEO role, which I think is going to do very well. But I think it's going to take it's taken him a little while to adjust to that, and it's hard for him to do so when you are an offensive mind like he is, and to step away. But I do think he was already trying to be a CEO role beforehand, and that distracted him in a lot of ways, and also distracted him on the expectations that he thought this team was going to be in 2024. So we'll see what happens. It's going to rely a lot on Thomas Castellanos and what this offensive line can do. And I think, FSU fans are just kind of sitting here waiting and trying to find scoop and nuggets that they can really feel that they can rely on. It's just hard to do that after you have a season that you did and Mike Norvell hyping up the team as he did.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Castellanos coming in and step on people's toes, buddy. Already looking at the week 1 schedule. Kansas State at Iowa State and Ireland. That's going to be freaking nuts.
Oh, wow.
Let's see some of the other big matchups. Friday, we have Auburn and Baylor. Georgia Tech travels to Colorado to take on the Buffaloes. Florida's taking on LIU. That don't matter. Alabama, Florida State. That's LSU. Clemson's another one. Tennessee and Syracuse. Watch out for Syracuse this year. Fran Brown. He's out there trying to let and they're playing that game at in Atlanta, and Texas and Ohio State. I mean, week 1 is going to be crazy next year. I don't know, USF, they take on Boise State. So, and then South Carolina, Virginia Tech, Notre Dame, Miami, TCU, North Carolina. I can't wait for week 1 of college football. Before I let you go, what do you think the top 5, maybe not in order, but how do you think those top 3 picks are going to shake out? 3-4 picks in the NFL draft. Do you think the Titans and Browns take a quarterback? Do you think the Giants take Shador if he's there, even though they just signed Jameis and Russell? What do you think?
Man, oh man. See, now, like we were just talking about, I brought up Jameis. I'm a big Jameis guy. I know for y'all in Tampa, because I just moved here 2 years ago, Jameis was not, of course, as liked because, your number 1 pick, projected to do a lot of things.
No, but he was, here's the thing.
Yeah.
He was really good to a lot of us here in the media. So for all the things that he did wrong, that's why we were so I was in the press area, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, no matter what Jameis has done, you know what I mean? He's always been great to me, and he's always been great to the media for the most part. And then he's like, 30 for 30, you need to check your sheet. And I'm like, Jameis, why did you say that? Like, don't say that, because he was just so nice to me, and his family was so great to me. So it's funny because I love Jameis. I met EJ Manuel a couple times. He was awesome. And my favorite player growing up was Charlie Ward. I loved him. He was the best. I'm a big Knicks fan, so he was a point guard for the Knicks. So I love that dude. Jameis is certainly sorry to cut you off, but go ahead.
No, you're good. I just want to mention Jameis because that was big news for him going up there to the Giants, and that impacts what they're projecting to do because they also bring in Russell Wilson, which is going to be a very, very interesting quarterback room. But I still wouldn't be shocked that they draft a quarterback. I just don't understand. It's the Giants too. Like I was just saying earlier, the Giants, the Jets. I don't trust anything that any of those 2 franchises and front offices are doing at all. So I have no understanding what kind of game plan they might be having. But to me, I thought that maybe you bring in Jameis, then you go and you draft a guy at the quarterback position, and kind of get some kind of bridge going there, whatever. Right. Wait till that quarterback's ready to go. But nowadays, first round quarterbacks, unless that class last year, like Jaden Daniels, that is a first round quarterback, top 3 pick. Absolutely. I just don't know if these quarterbacks are just really that talented to do so. I think there's some good upside there with Cam Ward. I have a lot of question marks about Shador Sanders on the field and off the field. A lot of things that, who knows what might be coming out. But, just hearing some things in Colorado there, I don't have a whole ton of trust in the leadership capabilities of a Shador Sanders and Tennessee. Now with Vrabel, like I'm not a Patriots fan. I'm a Steelers guy at heart. So, but I like Vrabel as a coach, and I think that's exactly what the Patriots needed last year. They just wouldn't. They wanted to give a chance to their former coach, and that's fine. But you had to go in there. You should have gotten Vrabel a year ago, anyways. But I'm really interested in where does Travis Hunter go? Is he a guy that you match in there at New England with Drake May? I think that's really an attractive spot for them. But do they go offensive line to protect Drake May, which they need to do? There's so many different storylines here. And you've got Liam Cohen there picking at number 5. What do they do at the Jaguars position? you know, they've got a lot of answers or a lot of question marks that they've got to go in and figure out themselves. But I'm sure, you know, a lot of predication will be on the offensive side of the ball for Liam Cohen and trying to build the talent that he previously had a lot with Baker Mayfield, and he was spoiled. I think he's going to find out he was really spoiled in Tampa with the talent that he had. So I think it's gonna be fun. Then you got the Las Vegas Raiders that need to be aggressive as well. I'm looking for this is going to be a really fun NFL draft to cover, and it also too, you know, the Bucs, you know, where do they end up picking, and could they trade where they want to go? You know, we don't see a ton of that with Jason Light, but you know, you got to be aggressive when you need to, and definitely when there's someone that you feel like can be a game changer for you, and that kind of talent is really usually in the first round itself.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I feel like there's somehow, some way Shador's going to get his way to Vegas. Brady's there. They get along. They have a relationship. He's close to his dad. I feel like, you know, he might slip a little bit, and I think that's where he goes. I feel like the Giants, by signing both those guys, I think they reserve the right to look at a quarterback next year. I really think they're looking at Arch Manning and going like, that could be our guy, you know, following your uncle's footsteps. Maybe you bring Jameis back for another year. And then that spot at 3, maybe you trade out with Oakland. Maybe you trade out with Oakland and then you go get, you know, a Graham, or you get, you know, I wouldn't say Carter because they have Thibodeau, and they just, you know, traded for Brian Burns last year. So maybe the Giants are in a place where they draft Travis Hunter, right? Like I think maybe that type of thing might work where Shador, you know, maybe they trade up, Travis Hunter falls. It's going to be tough though. We'll go from there, and keep an eye on Ashton Genty too. I think he's another guy, that running back. That could be a guy. Jacksonville, if they want to upset the apple cart a little bit, I know they have Travis Etienne, but maybe they go with Ashton Genty and they look at what Bucky Irving was able to do last year, and maybe that's what Jacksonville does.
Yeah. You never know. I know you got to get me out of here, but I had a quick question.
No, yeah, good.
Still learning the NHL, still getting down the Lightning. I go to a lot of Lightning games now. Like I said, just moved here, you know, almost 2 years ago now, but love going to Lightning games. How far do you think the Lightning are going to be able to make it? Because they're only just a few wins away from officially making it into the playoffs.
Yeah, so right now, as we stand, when we look at the standing, it's going to be huge when it comes to home ice advantage for the Lightning, right? So right now, Toronto, Lightning, Panthers, 74 games played. They got 8 games left. 94 for the Leafs, 93 for the Lightning, 92 for the Panthers. So if they don't get the number 1 seed in the division, they'll get the 2 seed and they'll host the 3 seed in the first round of the playoffs, which is paramount. Whether it's the 2 seed or the 1 seed, you're going to have home ice for the first round of the playoffs, and that is what this team needs. They're 27-8-2 at home. They're 17-17-3 on the road. But for me, I look at the most teams, and that would worry me. It does concern me slightly, but it's a different game in the playoffs because it's a lot tighter. It's a lot more checking. There's a lot less room to move around. And the most important position in any of the 4 major sports, outside of maybe, you know, even you could say about quarterback, but we've seen teams with, you know, not great quarterbacks win. You're not going to win unless you have a good goalie. Just the way it goes. Like, you affect the entire game. You could get outshot 50-15, but you can win 1-0 because you have a better goalie. So I think they can go all the way. My whole thing is that they have Isaac Howard sitting there, the kid from Michigan State, who is a Hobie Baker finalist for, you know, kind of the equivalent of the Heisman for college hockey. And they need to sign him this year, or he's going to go back to school next year. And if he goes back to school next year, and I don't think he is, then there'll be a problem and they risk losing him. You don't want to do that. You also don't want to sign him, put him in the minor leagues, because he doesn't want to do that, because he's looking at some of the other guys that he played with. Ryan Leonard with the Capitals, looking at Gabe Perreault with the Rangers. Leonard made his debut last night. Perreault will make his debut tonight for the Rangers. He's like, I played with those guys. I'm just as good, if not better than those guys. I want to be on the Lightning. I don't want to go to the minors, because if he goes to the minors this year, he can't play in the playoffs.
Okay.
So I think that's what's taking so long. And then also with the Lightning, they're so up close to the salary cap too. So they have to also be cognizant of, can't go over the salary cap. So it's weird how they adjust the numbers. It's computed on a daily basis. So they kind of like put money into a bucket pretty much every day for everybody that's on your roster. And maybe for the last couple of games, you can take one of your guys that isn't playing, put him in the minors, and then use that money to bring him in. I think he's the game changer. He's that good. He can possibly play with the top 6 guys. But if not, then he can be a factor, you know, on that third line. But yeah, when you have Victor Hedman and Andrei Vasilevsky, Nikita Kucherov, Gensel, and Point. Like, you have just as good a chance as anybody out there because the playoffs are a different animal. And you look at these teams, Washington's had a great regular season, but outside of Ovechkin, not many guys are familiar with long postseason runs. So they have just as good a chance as anybody. And there's no like clear-cut dominant team this year. And if you're going to bet on a goalie to win you 4 games out of 7, I mean, even though Connor Hellebuck's going to win the Vezina this year for the best goalie, I don't know if there's any GM in the league that wouldn't say, hey, I want to take 88. When you have him, for as long as you got him between the pipes, man, you got a chance to win.
It's fun, man. Going to those games and seeing him make those saves, whew, it's just it's exhilarating. And I know last year was a little bit of a letdown, but this year I'm hoping that a run can be made and go attend there in Emily Arena. It's so much. It's just it's a different kind of environment. I feel like too, definitely with the Bucs being the Rays getting into their season, and then too the Bucs being out. It's from what I've learned living here. Lightning fans, man, it's crazy. I mean, they eat up content like crazy, and it's just been fun to watch. And I love hockey. I love playoff hockey in general. I used to watch with my dad, and I didn't know what the heck was going on, but he loved it, so I loved it. So to be here in a town that has a very successful team, I'm excited for it. So I just wanted to pick your brain. And
I mean, playoff hockey is like, and I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday. I've been very fortunate. Like I covered the national championship game when it was here, Clemson, Alabama. I was in the building when the Buccaneers were in the Super Bowl, when they won the Super Bowl. There's just nothing like playoff hockey. Like there's just it's like the building shakes. Like it's nonstop. It's physical. It's 60 minutes of sitting on your hands. Like it's like you're freaking out, dude. It's unbelievable. And listen, I don't know if you can compare to like the tradition of every Saturday when it comes to college football, or the height of the heights of the NFL and the eyeballs and the Super Bowl and things like that. But playoff hockey is just it's so much different than the regular season. And then when you're in the building, bro, sometimes it sounds kind of weird, but sometimes when I'm in the arena, and I do this especially in the playoffs, is like I just close my eyes for like 30 seconds and I just feel the energy. And it sounds cliche and it sounds so corny, bro, but if you're a sports fan, like that's what you want to be able to experience. And playoff hockey, words don't even have to be said. You feel that energy. And when your team, as you alluded to, when your team is good, it's just like you get a chance to write history. You know what I mean? Like you get an opportunity to be like, hey, we run the roosts here. So I love the question, man. And I'm glad that you're part of Bolts Nation. He is Logan Robinson, Nole's Game Day, Bucs Game Day, UFC Knockout, Mavericks SI, Commanders SI. Here, the Spear host. He does it all. Logan's Twitty on Twitter. Go check him out. Logan B. Robinson. You should just rock with the middle initial, man?
I am. I don't know why I have it out there. I don't really know. I just sticks on Twitter well. I think it looks aesthetically pleasing, I guess you could say. But yeah, I'm keeping the B out there. The B out there.
I like it. Logan B. Robinson. And then just go by LBR. That's a good one, man.
That's my email. So
LBR, the one and only LBR. It's been a lot of fun, Logan. We'll do it again soon, man. Thank you. Have a great rest of your week.
Jay, I appreciate you having me. You kill it. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, pal.